Hello again everybody and welcome back to Fugit's Blitz with me, Fugit. Hello. Okay, this is a video that on the face of it could be quite controversial and it may upset quite a fair few people out there. But this is a topic that I feel really does need to be aired and debated. Now generally I'm a rather positive guy. I see the glass more half full rather than half empty. Recently, however, I have started to despair somewhat, to the point that I'm starting to fall out of love with Blitz, a game I do actually love. So what is the reason behind all this, you may ask? Well, it's pretty simple really. I am actually getting fed up with having totally clueless teams that have little to no understanding of the game. Look, since the migration, whereby CIS server came to EU server, there has been a significant downturn in player skills, which is more apparent when you get up to those big tiers like tier 10. Now, I have no issue with low win rate players, but when you roll out in the top tier and you have a team of players all with less than 45% win rate, you know that the odds are not in your favour. They do things that 45% win rate players and less do. They camp in heavies. They brawl when they shouldn't. They go to strange and unknown places on the maps. They fail to support the team. They shoot into the ground or into the air, or they bounce almost every shot. Generally, they play to the skill level that they have. Now all this is fine and dandy when you're down in the lower tiers. The tiers that are designed to introduce you to the game and allow you to understand not only the mechanics of the game, but also how to actually play the darn tanks and what the blooming maps are meant to be. Now it used to be that the average win rate in Blitz was around 48%, but from what I can tell, that has dropped massively. Now it seems that the average win rate is more like 45%. On top of all of that, we now have more AFKs, more blocking, more unsporting conduct, and let's not forget the new way to be toxic. Let's thumb you down for doing a better job than the other player, or for not carrying some 40%er in a game when they did sweet FA. Added to all this nonsense is the total inability to communicate with your team, aside from the basic commands, which the team doesn't read or doesn't even understand. I mean, let's be honest, if you're asking a guy with a 42% win rate after 60 odd thousand battles to keep an eye on the minimap, you're asking a lot. Now, they don't understand because of that, or because of the language, or they just have no idea of what the tactics should be, other than YOLO or camp. Now that's not to say the EU server was an awesome server prior to the migration, but I can certainly say it's a lot worse since. EU lost their chat privileges purely due to the migration. I mean, after all, NA, a notoriously toxic server, still has its chat, so does APAC. So why did EU lose their rights? Well, it's because there were so many complaints about the chat being in a language most didn't understand, and because it became even more toxic, if that was even possible, than before. Fact remains, losing chat may go some way to reduce some toxicity, but it also has an impact upon the game. You can no longer tell you guys, go this way, go that way, focus this tank, take this, blah, blah, blah. You can't do that. And these players, most of them, need this assistance. Not that they follow it, and not that they'd understand it. Personally, it feels like the EU server is no longer the EU server. And that's me being honest. It feels like the EU server has been taken over. Forced to play a mediocre play style, with mediocre tactics, and with mediocre players. Now, I personally have tried my best to remain positive, tried my best to integrate, but it seems that these players have no intention to integrate at all. They are forcing you to adopt to their poor playstyle, and from what I can tell, they have zero interest in improving. And I don't think I'm alone in this thinking. Yesterday some players joined me on Twitch and they all have the same complaints. One of them bemoaning that over the last couple of days he had a 12% win rate on a particular tier 10 tank, despite having a 69% win rate overall after X amount of thousands of battles. He's a good player. So what on earth is going on? Where is this so-called bad player or newbie MM we all hear about? Well, that seems to have gone bye-bye. And yes, I get it depends on how many players are in the queue. But over the last few days, the number of players on EU has been around 30,000. So I'm not buying that there's a lack of players. Far, far from it. Even if it were, that still doesn't explain those players with over 30,000 battles still sitting around the 42% win rate mark, rolling out in tanks in tiers they are clearly unable to play. One of my followers on Twitch is of the opinion that we're now experiencing bots from the CIS, which, tinfoil hat to one side, may actually be true. Because the amount of AFKs and totally clueless players is pretty difficult to rationally explain. I mean, if you have a win rate of 42% after 50,000 battles, then you are clearly doing something seriously wrong. Or you are one of those really strange and bizarre people who play competitive games because they enjoy losing. I've yet to actually meet anybody who actually enjoys losing. And if you are losing more games than you win, then you, my friend, are one of those weird people who generally enjoys coming last. But what's to blame for all of this? Well, Wargaming must shoulder the majority of that. Wargaming have literally opened up the game to fast track. Brings a whole new meaning to the word and term Blitz. Now I know Blitz means quick or lightning or fast, but this is just stupid. Players can now avoid the grind completely. You can just throw cash or gold at getting the next tank. You can therefore get to a tier 10 without ever actually grinding a tank at all. All you need is enough money to get the XP and the gold, and Bob's your uncle, away you go. Throw into that mix the amount of boosters thrown at you for literally nothing that you can then use in the fun game modes, etc, etc. It all starts to stack up for impending doom. Now I have nothing against Wargaming earning some readies. After all, they're a business. But surely if they wish to remain a going concern, then the brakes need to be applied at some point. Because no one is going to continue to invest in a game that is quickly heading towards the realms of no skill required. I mean, where's the fun in that? And before you start pointing fingers in my direction, no, I am not asking for a skill-based MM or anything of the sort. All I'm asking is for some serious consideration to be given by Wargaming to the overall state of their game before it's too late. Wargaming need to step up. They need to do something to stop players rushing through the tiers. They need to do something to assist players who clearly are unable to cope in the upper tiers. They need to remove the ability to instantly upgrade for gold any tank. They need to stop the ×5 boosters and stop with the boosters being thrown out left, right and centre, and just take a step back and consider your overall player base before it's too late. Yeah, the new players will spend more cash than the veterans, of course, but I'm not addressing new players here. I have seen players with over 20,000 battles who are totally devoid of any brain cells, rolling out in tanks with win rates that beg a belief. Clearly these players struggle, and they in turn spoil the fun for others. Yesterday during my Twitch stream, in 90% of my games, my team comprised of players with less than a 45% win rate, yet they all had over 25,000 battles. Now that's not the odd one or two, that's the entire team, and that's not the odd game, that's 90% of the games. Teams like that are not fun to play with. They're not entertaining. Well, actually they are entertaining because some of the things they do, like sitting next to the cap in supremacy without capping it when the points are close and you are one shot, and you're a one shot and you're tier 9 Yet you decide to engage a half-health E100 further down the map because, well, reasons, all the time having a full HP VK-72 sitting in the spawn trying to snipe because, again, reasons. That was a 4 versus 1 game. There was one E100 and there were 4 tanks. I'd got wrecked earlier, but I did 3.5k. And we lost it on caps because the guy in the tier 9 just decided to sit next to the cap without capping it for a full minute. That's a total lack of common sense in my book. Then, when you think Wargaming can't make any more daft decisions, they go and make all the autoloaders fully loaded at the start of the game. What? It's just stupid. It makes zero sense to do that unless the intention is to dumb the player base down even further to make it easier for those who struggle. Now look, you may think I'm being a little bit unfair, but think about it. Let's take a TVP as a prime example. Now this is a massively superior tank in any event. Prior to update 10, the TVP could not be loaded on mines in time to get up to the top of the hill, which is a good thing. Now, however, it's fully loaded, and it can therefore literally drop its entire clip on any tank taking that hill position. That was never an option before. Giving autoloaders this new ability changes the total dynamic of the game. If you're smart and you tune in the TVPs, then you know, and you know what you're doing, you can now pile shots from across the map into the enemy spawn. The moment the battle starts, possibly hitting some unsuspecting player. And don't think it doesn't happen, because I've seen screenshots and video shots sent to me where that exactly happens. This was a stupid decision, in my opinion. This will also have a massive impact in the tournaments. And anybody with a brain cell will now pick an autoloader over any other tank, because there's a significant advantage in that, especially with those tanks such as the Minotauro with its amazingly great armor and excessively long reload. Forget the excessively long reload, because now you're fully loaded as soon as the battle commences. All these little changes are taking the game down a rabbit hole and effectively removing the skill and the tactical element from the game. That cannot be a good thing. Well, I don't think it is. That will turn the game into a joke. Now, for a long time, those who play WotPC have considered Blitz to be a kiddies game, a stupid game for, moronic children. And that's sort of coming to fruition, and I've never played WotPC, believe it or not. That's clearly not the way we want this game to go. All this leaves me with a fear of impending doom, where the fun is literally being sucked out of the game. And Wargaming are playing the part of the band on the Titanic. Yeah, the ship is sinking, but we shall play on in the vain hope that it doesn't, when we all know that it will. Personally, I never thought I would get to the point where I don't really want to play anymore, because the fun element is slowly but surely being drained. I do wonder why Blitz did not take the same approach that WotPC did with regard to the migration, whereby a separate server was set up to cater for those migrating from the CIS, their own server, so to speak, and it didn't interfere with the current EU server and vice versa. Yeah, you could still cross over in platoons, and that was great, but you effectively gave the CIS people coming across a platform whereby nothing really changed. They were still with their buddies, they're still doing the same tactics, the same gameplay, everything was the same, and the EU pretty much was the same. That may have gone a long way to preventing most of what we now experience. It would certainly have retained the chat, but that's a discussion for another day. Anyway, that's been my take on that. I've been Fujit. I'd love to hear your talk and your views on this, because I think it's something that will really... It's an elephant in the room. And like all elephants in the room, at some point it has to be addressed and it has to be tackled and it has to be discussed. Now, I'm not calling out all the people who migrated from CIS as bad players. They're clearly not. You know, we on EU have also got equally bad players. So don't think this is some we are EU and we're superior to you CIS. No, that's not the case at all. All I'm saying is, recently, because of the migration, it seems that the game is going in the opposite direction. And that was never the intention. I don't think it was anyway. Anyway, as I said, I've been Fujit. That has been my take on this. I'd love to know your thoughts, your views, because that's the whole idea of all of this. Anyway, until the next time, guys, try to stay safe. Try to have fun out there and try to have some happy tanking. I know it's difficult because at the end of the day, the game is what it's meant to be. It's meant to be there for fun and enjoyment. And that's slowly eroding. At least I think so.